I tell myself the back 40 is only land with a number on it, a square on the map that happens to be covered in trees. That lie holds during daylight when the hills look like simple folds in green cloth, and the dirt roads are just lines you can trace with a finger. After dark, the same ground closes like a book, and I live between the pages with my squad. We set in near the plywood village, the manuals label Cassidy, and the guys just call the town. The shapes of its roofs and corners lean behind us like a cheap stage set, and in front of us, the trees knit a wall out of black. We push a blocking line 100 meters into the brush and make positions where the roots allow us to make them. We wire in where the branches let us reach. We sit lower than we want because the earth here is stubborn. The heat rides our necks and the air tastes like damp coins. Every sound is close, even the ones that come from far away. I breathe slow because fast breathing makes fear happy, and I do not plan to feed it. Our platoon radio man is the one person I can track without looking. He is young and heavy-footed and walks his rounds with the confidence of someone who knows we need what he carries. His steps have a signature you learn on the first night. Nylon swish stick, snap battery, thump. He passes every 20 minutes like a tide, checking if anyone needs a fresh 148 battery, dropping a joke that always lands a little short. The routine becomes a heartbeat we lean on. The line trades watch and sleep without much talk. One pair of eyes open while another rests. Then they swap. The plywood town glows behind us with the pale light that never belongs to stars, and it makes the trunks ahead look dipped in ink. When I hear the steps again, I do not look up because habit keeps people alive. The steps stop a little right of my shoulder. I wait for the whisper that always follows. It does not come. Instead, there is a steady, deliberate sniffing, the kind of slow pull a creature makes when it is not curious but working. The air slides off my boots and up my legs like a scan. The hair on my forearms stands in the thick heat. I roll my shoulder against slick bark and turn my head a little careful not to give a full profile. 20 meters out, something crouches with its forearms long and its back high and its head tipped toward me. I do not see teeth. I do not see eyes. I see a posture that knows how to wait. My hand finds the E-tool without looking. Metal cold, handle gritty. I flip my nods down and thumb over to thermal. The world blooms to heat and the thing moves before the image resolves. It launches in a diagonal line as if the ground slants in a way the rest of us do not feel. It rides low and fast, shoulders rolling like a predator, but the torso is too high for a normal four-leg form. Brush explodes, dead branches crack, and then the noise is far off as if sound itself is losing interest trying to keep up. I track it for 2 breaths, and then it is a smear where the trees hold heat longer than they should. Someone down the line breathes coyote. The way a kid says a word he hopes will be big enough to hide behind. Another voice says, "No, soft." And that is the end of our bravery to speak. We do not get up. We do not key the net. We do not invent a plan because there is no plan that fits into a checklist you can memorize and rehearse. We sit and let the choice to be quiet hold us in place like a strap. The forest answers with small noises that would not matter if the night were friendly. Beetles draw thin zips over leaf skin. Frogs test a note and give it up. Somewhere far off, coyotes warm into their thin chorus and are cut off mid-yip by a sound with weight in it, a low, wide call that slides through me and leaves my bones humming. It does not rise, it does not fall. It just is, and the woods go blank after it, like somebody cut power to a room that only pretended to be lit. Morning dries the ground the way a slow fire dries wet clothes, but it does not touch the thought that sits behind my eyes. We push into a new sector, rehearse the same lane eat pouches that turn our mouths chalk white and make the same jokes men have always made over bad food. The next night, the sky gets tired of patience and opens. We set a perimeter along a shallow ditch that is half drain and half rumor of a creek. The clay becomes soap under our boots. The roots that were footholds turn to greased cords waiting for ankles. My gun team slumps with the 240 and trades curses that sound like old family names. The squad leader leans against a tree with the posture of a man who understands there is no dry to be found and no dignity in pretending otherwise. The RTO swapped batteries earlier. Same footfall, same quick hands, same grin that looks brave until you see how young his face is. 20 minutes later, we hear the steps again through the hiss of rain. We do not raise our heads. The sound stops a step behind my shoulder. There is no whisper, no sergeant, you good. There is only the sniffing steady and patient like the night itself is smelling us and deciding which part to keep. It crosses between me and the assistant gunner. The AG and I drop our nods as if one muscle runs across both our necks and fires in the same second. Leaves slap wet. The ditch shudders. Something heavy drops into the trench and runs it like a track it has always owned. Two beat, two beat, two beat. Not boots, not four paws. Its own drum. It slides out farther down and folds into the brush. We sit in the rain and let our breathing find a lane that does not include panic. We do not call it in. There is no line in any manual for slow sniffing and two-beat ditch running. Later, the first sergeant corners me behind a truck and asks what I saw. I hand him weight and speed and a lack of fear for our line. He nods like he expected that answer. He mentions old stories that ride the wind to our west. He says words like the land between the lakes and says them like a man who has learned not to say them out loud too often. He does not give the thing a name. He tells me to keep it quiet for the good of the platoon. I nod. We both pretend that is the end of it. The days stack, the nights stack. The line of trees becomes a map painted on the inside of my eyelids. At Ordo 200 on road guard, the asphalt runs dull as a belt. A storm drain sits to our 7 like a round mouth breathing damp iron. My buddy watches one sector and I watch the other, and we float in two green circles the size of dinner plates. The drizzle is steady. The leaves shine like they have a layer of varnish nobody asked for. The smells are basement and rust river and mud sweat and the long breath of the forest. He jolts like a wire, Bidham drops to his side and claws at the ground with his free hand. It grabbed me, he yells, his voice cracking into an old fear that does not belong to any rank. It tried to pull me into the drain. I kneel at the mouth of the culvert and stick my head into the dark. The pipe runs under the road and away, a black throat with wet concrete ribs. From that throat, I hear flat slaps fast and sure not claws, not boots. Bare feet on wet concrete. A short grunt follows not pig, not man, not anything I want to meet in a place I cannot stand upright. The sound moves away from us quick, like something that is only slow when it chooses. I pull back and point my lenses across the road to the far mouth. Past the opening in the tree line, a shape stands tall enough to bend the branches. The head runs long and the ears peak. The chest is wide and the shoulders carry themselves like they are used to owning space. Under green glow, the eyes give light back, like coins turned in a palm. My mouth makes a noise and I snap a burst of sim rounds because noise feels like the only thing I own. The training rounds smack leaves and do the exact amount of nothing a body that size would notice if it did not want to. The figure peels off in a rush that wastes no motion. For a few strides, it drops low on all fours, and the shoulders and hips roll in a way that reads like an old gait remembered. Then it stands into the brush and snaps young trunks like reeds. We stand in rain and count our own hearts. My buddy's pants are ragged at the calf where something gripped him. The pattern looks like fingers that do not remember how to be fingers. He says it pulled, and I see the empty round of the culvert mouth, that could have swallowed his legs if the pull had been 1 second longer. We mutter about how dumb it is that none of us carries live ammo out here, and we do not laugh because the joke is not funny. We save our breath because it suddenly feels like a resource, and we do not know how many resources we have left on that road. The next sector is an insult made of thorns. The brush grew tall and mean while nobody looked. The walls of it are as high as my eyes, tight and close, with the kind of spite plants learn when they own their ground. The radio hisses half words and the rest of the company becomes a rumor in the green. Something moves through that prison like the thorns bend out of its way. I cannot see it. I feel the movement the way you feel someone in the room with you when your eyes are closed. The pace is wrong to be a deer, and the path is wrong to be a man. The CO keys up calm and asks whose dog is about to wreck our noise discipline. Nobody answers. A ripple runs the thicket without going toward us or away. It circles. It knows we are here, and it wants us to know it knows. Above us, coyotes try to carry on, and then throw their voices into the dirt as if a hand pressed down on the song. Between details, there are the stories soldiers tell to keep their hands busy. I hear about lights over the ranges that radar does not love. I hear a name from the airfield side of the base more than I used to a name pilots wear like a patch. And the rest of us say with the kind of respect you put on the edge of a sentence. I hear about a pursuit in a winter none of us was alive for when a pilot chased something he could not catch. I hear the kind of rumor that does not help inside a ditch when you already know what 2-beat sounds like. Old places throw old voices. The trail of tears cut through this ground a long time before we cut it into sectors. Cemeteries sit in the trees where the roots reach around old stones and hold them without effort. None of that is a rule I can apply. It is weight. The back 40 is big enough to hold it without complaint. Operation Lethal Eagle spins us into a different gear. I get attached to the CP for night work and discover that boredom has its own weather front. The tent breathes when the units cycle and snores when they do not. The road guard leans under a tarp and wears his nods like a hat brim. My buddy and I drift to the wire and step past him, not because we want trouble, but because some nights curiosity feels like a thin line someone else already walked. Down the road sits another training village, a small cluster of wooden huts and concrete boxes that look like a model set left out by a kid who lost interest. We walk without white light because the moon gives enough, and because we want to believe our eyes are still our own. At the site, the wind carries the dry, tired smell of old wood. Grass grows high around the walls. Most doors wear proud rust. One wooden door hangs open a finger's width. We stand in gravel and listen. The old warning I learned as a kid on a pier wakes up in my ankles. "You going in?" he asks. "Yeah," I say, and he pushes the door with 2 fingers, the way you greet a dog you do not trust. The back wall shakes hard, a fast run of kicks and gravel that stops all at once and leaves silence sitting on our shoulders like weight. We jump back and throw red light into a room that refuses to be anything but empty. No mattress, no trash, no sign of anyone living where no one is supposed to live. On the dirt by the rear wall, there is a long depression, a rut that runs under the wall, as if a habit grew impatient with walls. We do not step across the threshold. The threshold feels like a contract, and we do not have a lawyer. In the grass behind us stalks part and sway. I turn slow. A shape sits mostly hidden chest and shoulders above the blades. The head tilts and shows a long face that reads as wolf until it reads as man, and then it reads as something that does not need my language. The eyes reflect our red in 2 small points. We hold still, and it holds still. My buddy raises his arms and stomps the way hikers do when a black bear needs a better idea. The thing does not charge. It sinks its head until the eyes slide below the grass line, and that is worse than teeth. We back out, not fast, not brave, just careful. The sensation of being watched comes along like a belt around our ribs. We do not talk until the CP fills our ears with familiar machine noise. At the tent, we speak in a low rush because silence has weight and we need the air back. I say I saw a man until a dog looked back at me. He says he saw a dog until it stood like a man. We are both right and neither description helps. We agree on the gravel drum behind the wall. We agree on the dug path under the wall. We agree we are not putting it on the net. The story is true and does not need paper to be real. People will ask for names and rules if we name it. People will expect silver and schedules if we call it what some people call it. We have no rules to offer. We have no schedules to comfort anyone. We have a list of details in the places where breath stuck in our throats. Base life keeps moving. We inventory what we already inventoried. We sign for gear we already signed for. We clean weapons until they feel smooth enough to be thoughts. The machine turns and the parts trust each other as long as nobody lies. Old-timers mention the narrow strip of land west of us the way a man mentions a scar. They talk about people who were moved to make room for water and the way a place remembers the shape of a town long after the houses are gone. They talk about how quiet can become a rule by itself. I do not need the extra weight of those stories to carry my own nights, but I do not push them away either. The back 40 is big enough for everything to be true at once. I change in small ways that only I notice. I do not go into the trees alone anymore. It is not fear so much as respect, like closing a gate without thinking. I drink more gas station coffee than I should because its simple lie about wakefulness helps more than I want to admit. I watch the line for patterns that skip. Birds stop together and stay stopped too long. Insects forget their little song and cannot find it again. The air carries wet fur even when there is no wind to move smell. Once in a while, I find a print that reads like a person took one long step and then scrubbed the next one away with leaves. Maybe I am seeing what I want to see. Maybe the ground has moods like the rest of us. I mark the place in my head anyway. If a private asks me whether monsters are real, I do not give him a movie. I give him a list. The forest hears metal scrape and answers with a pause. Packs sing until something larger tells them to be quiet. A culvert carries footsteps like a throat carries a voice, and flat slaps on wet concrete are not pause. If something moves like, it is happy at 2 beats or 4 and does not trip over, either your eyes are not playing tricks. If your nose floods with wet dog when there is no wind, that is not memory. That is a message. I am not sure who sends it. On firewatch, I nod once. The chin dips. The gray lines paint themselves on the inside of my eyes. A boot scrapes too close to the right, and my mouth starts to say the RTO's name before my brain remembers he rotated. I hold still. I count to 30 because numbers give my breath something to do. Leaves rise and fall to my right like a man easing down into a crouch. I do not turn. I do not hand my profile to the trees. I keep my voice easy and say seen. I do not say anything else. The pressure lifts. The normal night comes back like a dog that wandered and returned because the porch was still the best place to be. I do not know what was there. I do not ask the dark to send me a receipt. Around camp stories roll like loose bolts in a pocket. Campers out near the water call in sounds they cannot file under any normal form. A bow hunter steps into timber and steps back out a field later without being sure why, except that a lens settled on his back like a hand. A tower eats a surge that should not be there, and the radios cough for a count of 5. Most of it is gossip. None of it helps in a ditch. My list helps in a ditch. The list is heavy and small and mine. Daylight puts a clean shine on Cassidy and makes everything look polite. The creek whispers gossip to the stones. The houses sit at right angles and pretend to be a town. Inside the rooms, no blank rounds and shouts and corners, scrubbed by 100 elbows. We treat it like a town because the training says to. The town treats us like we will be gone by noon. At night, the polite angles turn into a wall. The wall has a door I do not want to open. The door has a threshold I will not cross for no reason I can explain to anyone who has not stood where I stood. I wait for fear to weather away. It does not. It learns my routine and sits in it. It waits at culvert mouths when I pass and asks if my pace changes. It rides in the back seat and looks out the window while I count heads. It stands next to the road guard and watches with us. It is not loud. It is patient, and patience is worse. I plan around it like you plan around storms. When the pressure drops, I tighten straps. When the wind turns, I check what I checked yesterday. Fear becomes a checklist, and that makes it smaller. Young guys ask for advice before their first long field problem. I give them the boring parts first. Drink before your throat asks. Dry socks are not optional. Tape the squeaks on your kit so the night does not learn your name. Learn the step pattern of your RTO. Know your team leader's voices over bad radio. On firewatch, count to 30 when a nod tries your head. If a noise lands where no noise should be, do not snap your head like you're offering your neck to the trees. Keep still. Say seen. Mean it. Breathe. Some nights nothing happens at 0200 except your own thoughts shaping fog. Some nights the woods lean in, and something with a long face shares the lean. Those are the nights you earn the morning. On a last night out here, I sit against the same oak where the first step stopped. The heat broke after rain, and the air feels clean in a way it does not often give us. Down the line, a soldier hums 2 notes without meaning to, and the sound falls with good manners. Behind us, Cassidy pretends to be a town again. In front of us, the trees make one plain door. If anything is out there, it owns patience like a deed. I say soft enough for the bark alone. I am awake. I keep that promise because I owe it to my guys and because the night notices when you lie. After the rotation ends, the work does not care what I saw. We sign forms and sweep tents and coil cords and sort trash and act like nothing out of the ordinary ever stands up where grass is tall. It is easier for most people when the job is only a job. I do not try to convert anyone. The woods do not care about my sales pitch. I hold my watches, I count my people. I let the first sergeant keep his stories, and I keep mine. On certain nights when the wind slides the wrong way through the CP and leaves a smell like a wet animal, I touch the top button of my blouse and test the stitch because stitches fail when you want them to hold. And touches remind you you still get to choose some things. I think about the culvert more than anything else because a clean circle in the world does not need to mean danger, and suddenly it does. I think about my buddy's pant leg, torn by a grip that made a shape my brain keeps trying to fit into a catalog that does not contain a match. I think about the sound of flat soles on wet concrete moving fast in a space too small for pride. I think about how the body lowers to 4 and rises to 2 like it has practiced both until either feels like home. I think about the eyes that reflect green glow as if they understand what green glow is supposed to do and do not mind it at all. These are not good thoughts for sleep. They are good thoughts for watch. In the thorns, I learned the difference between speed and ease. We can run fast through that brush if we accept blood and torn sleeves and helmets shoved crooked by vines. Something around us moved without paying the price we paid. It felt like the brush made a choice to be a wall for us and a hallway for it. That is a detail that does not leave my mind. It means I am not the center of that map. It means there are paths on top of our paths I cannot see. It means if I see it again, it will be on a night and in a way it chooses. Back at the tent, the noise is its own kind of weather. Generators drone like a hive. Radios murmur and then sigh. A fan rattles until someone lays a finger on the cage and buys a minute of quiet. I sit under that sound and fill out grids and call in nothing and hold the hours with both hands. The road guard nods on his post and I give him grief in the approved tones, because that is what a good sergeant does, but I also hand him a cup and talk until I hear his words change shape back into alert ones. The small work holds the big work together. Most of our job is small work. On the night we walked to the forgotten huts, I noticed things I never used to care about. The way the grass leaned told me the wind had changed twice in the last hour. The way the dirt held our prints said the top had dried over a wet core. Our red lights made wood grain look like scars. The hinge left a dust line on my buddy's finger when he nudged the door. When the gravel drummed the back wall, my ribs tried to pull inward, like a memory of being a smaller person. The empty room held heat like a body had just left it. It is not proof. It is a detail. It is a detail that will never move out. On the road back from that place, I felt watched without feeling hunted. The difference matters. Watched means measured. Hunted means chosen. Measured is bad enough. I kept my hands loose and my steps level, and I did not let my pace betray my mind. A rabbit bolted left, and my body wanted to bring the rifle up too fast. I let that urge pass. The grass made small sounds that were probably only grass. The sensation around my ribs stayed with me all the way to the wire, where man-made lights and power cords and loud familiar machines take up space the trees cannot take from them. Fort Campbell looks ordinary at noon from the main roads. It is a city built around a machine that never stops all the way. The back 40 is a part of that machine, the way an engine room is a part of a ship. People forget engines live under them until something knocks. The forest knocks sometimes. It knocks in a low voice, and if you do not have the ear for it, you will call it weather or animals, and you will not be wrong. You just will not be right enough to stay safe. Inside the wire, the tracks crisscross and repeat and deliver you back to the same patch of trees you thought you left an hour ago. The ground holds your boots in its memory, and if you are careless, it will let the next thing know you are coming. In this work, you measure time in strange ways. How long since the last battery swap? How long until the next resupply of coffee? How many rotations until the rookies stop needing the same reminder twice? The night with sniffing behind my shoulder stretches over other nights like a shadow. I find myself counting hitches in normal sound. I listen for changes in how weight meets the ground. The younger version of me would call this dramatic. The current me would call that younger guy unprepared. I do not care which one wins the argument as long as the people on my left and right keep breathing. One afternoon, the first sergeant walks by our fighting position, not to ask about what we saw, but to check the boring things that keep us alive. Are we swapping watches tight? Are we hydrating? Are we rotating socks? Is anyone talking too much about things that live outside the wire and should stay there? I say we are good. He squints at the tree line and says quiet in a way I have not heard from him, to keep it tight near the ditch roads at night. No reason offered, no name attached. I say Roger. Orders without explanations are normal. Orders that line up with weight behind the eyes get priority. On a rare day off, a few of us drive to a gas station and stand in a triangle holding paper cups while slow traffic ignores us. A kid in a camo hat buys bait and strips of beef jerky and looks like he belongs to a world where the lakes are only pretty and not all so weird. I feel jealous of that simple good. I do not want to live in fear. I want to live with enough respect that nothing with a long face and old patience has to teach me the same lesson twice. Sometimes I picture a conversation I will never have. Not words, posture. I picture standing up straight with my weapon low and my hands open. I send a message that is not challenge and not surrender. It is only I am here and I see you, and I am not pretending. I do not know if that thought is brave or stupid. Maybe the correct posture is watchfulness without invitation. Maybe the correct posture is the same one you use with storms. You close windows. You do not yell at the sky. You wait with your gear staged and you keep count. The older guys who have been here since before I signed my first form sit quiet when the talk reaches back 40 stories. They listen and then get up and go about their work. I used to think they did not care. Now I think they know that talking too much about certain things makes those things stand closer. There is relief in not naming. There is also a cost. We carry weight without giving it to the air, and the air thickens around our shoulders. I do not have a solution for that. I have duties and I do them. When I close my eyes for a 10-minute nap and let sleep steal what it can, I do not see the full shape of the thing. I see circles. I see the culvert, a round mouth that should belong to water and frogs and nothing else. I see my buddy's leg jerk like a fish pinned to a dock. I see the tree line beyond the far mouth, and the way the branches gave me more information than the body did, because the body did not want to be measured. I open my eyes before my brain starts filling gaps with lies. The first thing I check is my count. The second is the line. The third is the sound the ditch makes when wind moves over water. We never say the name some people use. It is not a rule we wrote. It is a choice that helps our heads. Names bring rules, and folks will ask if silver solves anything and joke about full moons because jokes keep hands from shaking. That belongs to movies and to long roads and to people who want the world to work on schedules that make sense. In a ditch with mud up to your ankles and a 2-beat rhythm moving faster than your fear, none of that helps. My list helps. Weight, speed, gait, how it listens, how it is not embarrassed to sniff a line of soldiers like it is checking inventory. A few days after the culvert, I walked the same road on a different shift and traced the ground with my eyes the way I trace a map with a finger. I find a line of prints that read like a long stride, and then a smear as if someone took a broom of wet leaves to the next step. Maybe I am seeing things. Maybe the ground is teaching me to pay better attention. Either way, I mark the place. The drain breathes the same smell, and water inside the pipe makes a small ticking sound, like instruments warming up. We stand farther off the mouth than we did before. That might be cowardice. It might be wisdom. Some nights those two wear each other's uniforms. I notice how the forest changes in small distances. Near the town there is trash we leave behind: a heater packet, a bent spoon, a wrapper pressed flat by boots. A quarter mile out, the litter stops and the ground belongs to animals again. Farther still, you find the middle places where an old firing point left a cleared view and a berm that a rabbit now lives under. There is always a breeze in those gaps, even when the leaves in the rest of the world are still. That is where voices carry wrong. That is where I hear my own name when nobody says it. That is where I do not answer. I am not confused even when I am uncertain. I know what I heard and what I saw and what I smelled. I know what was grabbed and what let go. I know the feel of a room that holds heat even though nothing inside it holds any story of a person staying there. I know what it means to stand on a road with a rifle that can only make noise and watch eyes do their calm reflection in green light as if they know the trick I am trying to use. I know what it means to leave without tripping because I do not want to teach the night that I am easy to chase. On the last night of that long stretch, I make one more walk down the line before I settle into my home. I stop at each fighting position and stand long enough to see the shape of the soldier inside it, the set of his shoulders, the way he shifts to listen before he looks. I do not give speeches. A nod and a thumb are enough. I move on. I sit at my oak and run my palm over the patch of bark my shoulder rubs smooth over days. It feels like a coin wore it down. If the tree remembers me, I hope it remembers that I kept my end. The clock slides toward that hour where thoughts get loud. The night is wide but not empty. Somewhere far off, a truck downshifts and the sound never quite arrives where I am. I smell damp dirt and the old smoke of a range that saw too many blanks. I think of the road guard under his tarp. I think of the CP breathing like a big animal asleep on its feet. I think of my line, a thin shine stretched across the dark. I think of the thing that might be 10 yards inside the trees, or a mile away, or nowhere near us tonight. I do not invite it. I do not banish it. I sit between those choices with my rifle across my knees and my eyes open. At some point, a breeze moves and cools a sweat at the back of my neck. A leaf taps my helmet and keeps going. Water gathers and starts to talk again in the ditch after a long day of heat. I breathe in and count to 30 and breathe out and do it again. There is no music here. There is no dramatic cue to tell me what page I am on. There is only the promise I made quietly to the bark and the simple job that does not get easier, no matter how many nights you practice it. I keep my eyes on the tree line. I keep my mouth closed. I stay awake because something out there knows the difference.